Namaste and welcome to Live, Love, Engage. I am Gloria Grace Rand, and today I've got a guest on the show, and she's got a lot of excellent experience dealing with mind body, and we're going to kind of talk. It's probably a wide-ranging thing, but I think mostly about how to handle what life throws you, because life throws you curveballs a lot, and this year has been no exception. As we're recording this at the end of September already, can't believe it. But my guest today is Mandy Barbee. So welcome, Mandy, first off, to Live, Love, Engage.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to share our time together this morning.
Oh, well, I am delighted to have you. And let me share with you, this woman is quite the expert with a lot of interesting experience in, certifications in clinical hypnotherapy, neurolinguistics, mind-body connection. She's the founder of Palladium Mind, and she's a transformation and healing expert, and she's helped hundreds of clients across the globe to overcome anxiousness so that they can thrive in business, health, and life. And that is what we all need to be able to do. And so I am delighted to have her here sharing some of her wisdom today. And we were talking, we were talking before we got started today about, I started feeling kind of wonky last night. And then this morning I was still like, kind of like this low grade headache and just feeling just out of sorts. And it was distressing because I am all about right now interested in visualizing and creating the life of my dreams, and I just wasn't up for doing it this morning. It was just like, it's not happening. I don't know what's going on. And after I actually wound up doing an errand this morning, and I finally dawned on me that there's some changes going on in my life that were probably the reason for what was going on and what was prompting this unsettling feeling, I guess is the best way to say it. And I felt better. And I was wondering, Mandy, what's your experience along this lines? Have you ever even experienced something like that for yourself? And why is it maybe good for us to sort of take a look at it even a little bit and maybe try to figure out what's going on?
I just appreciate your vulnerability so much. It's so refreshing to jump on the line with someone and be able to discuss what's really present in life and between us, because, you know, we're not granted another minute guaranteed. And that's what I think about a lot. And so I really resonate with what you shared. And I do think it's so important. I think it's important. I think in a way, anytime we can really be true to what's going on for us, especially like literally when you have the mic or when you're given some type of an opportunity to share in a more public way, it's a really brave thing. And it's like we're all kind of lighting the path for each other of how to be more true to what's actually going on in the present. And what I really loved when we were chatting before we hit record, I mean, there wasn't really an intention for whether or not that was going to be the leading thing. It was just human connection happening. But what I loved about it is how you shared that the immediate result of doing that look within yourself and checking in with yourself instead of just trying to push your way through the rest of the day, but actually going, wait a second, what is going on here? You were able to actually experience some almost immediate relief.
Yeah, I
was. That's amazing. Yeah. That's so amazing. I think that's really characteristic too. And what I see through, so my life path is really about looking within. And it's an interesting thing because I think like some people, they're researchers and they look outside of themselves for answers. Right. And I am holding a torch to the power of looking within yourself. And so one of the biggest things that I'm passionate about is helping people to find the courage to take the action of trust. Trust is a decision. They have to trust that that answer is there, even when it's not obvious. And it sounds like you've been doing this work over a longer period of time. So maybe that synapse is closer. So you can go, you found the answer this morning. But a lot of times when people are at the very beginning of that path, they don't the answers don't bubble right up.
Yeah.
That's tough. It's tough to deal with when the answers aren't there when you look yet, but
Yeah.
they will be.
Absolutely. And it's why it's so important, I believe, for people to sometimes seek outside help from people like yourself, because I've definitely had to do that over the years. Because yeah, this is not something that I used to be able to come to a realization of that quickly. And basically within like about 12 hours or so that I was able to figure it out. Sometimes it would take quite a while and I would be miserable, maybe for days or weeks or
Yeah.
something. And just not understanding what was going on. But now with awareness, it definitely um, it is about trusting your intuition, I think, and really starting to be more present to um, really listening to your body, sometimes listening to your inner guidance, higher power. I believe in a higher power. I don't know what your beliefs are, and those who are listening, but regardless, there's still something inside of you. You're not just the body. There is something inside of you that makes you you. um, this
Yeah, I totally resonate with that, and I also think there's two other really really interesting things of what you were just sharing. Is like now 12 hours seems fast,
mm,
and sometimes, and so it's like, wow, to shorten it from maybe months of a feeling of not knowing into 12 hours, that is like so amazing. And the more that we do that, the more that we can bring it in even tighter so that there's this constant loop of communication. And that's just the knowing that that's possible can, I think, also encourage people, because we're used to, well, I'm going to do it, I'm capable, I'm going to create it, and it should be there just like that. But it's a practice.
oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, because that is something that I'm still maybe a recovering, I want it done, fixed now type of person.
Right.
So, and like I said, I'm still recovering, because there are still times where it's like, and that's even, I think, even a little bit of this morning, I was just sort of impatient, like, why do I feel so bad? What is going on? And it was just like, I don't like feeling this way, and I want to feel better. So yeah, it's interesting, but it's that is where I've done a lot of work. And like I said, I've been I've run the gamut of like attending personal development workshops. I've talked with um, therapists. I've had coaches. I still have coaches. And I think it's so important to get an outside perspective, because a lot of times we have blinders on and we can't really see something that might be really obvious to someone else who's got experience and can pick up a lot of things. I still do is sometimes my words are not as let's see, how should I say, empowering, or just not as affirming maybe as I would like them to be. Let's put it that way. And
Yeah.
and my coaches will catch me on that, and so I'm like, thank you, because I still don't hear it all the time. Do you run into that in working with your clients? Do you deal with
Oh
that?
my gosh, yes. Yes. I mean, so a little bit about my background. When I was in my 20s, it was through a path of like obsessive like achievement. Like I was just obsessed with like knocking things off the list and accomplishing things, that yoga was another thing that I was using to really help myself feel accomplished and get more out of my day. And it was a way of like attaching value
Mm.
of how much could I reward myself for how much I had accomplished. And it was through the practice though of being with instructors, because there's so much. The heart of yoga is really about being present to the moment
Mm.
and being present to what is, and holding non-judgment and compassion for yourself, and just observing and knowing that we are the witness even of our own thoughts. And so in that class, one day after, pounding my face on the ground and doing a bunch of basically push-ups and sweating a lot, I was feeling so frustrated with myself that I hadn't accomplished X, Y, or Z yet, because I was in a lot of pain in that class, and they were telling me it was supposed to be a restful pose. I was like, yeah, right. Never. This is never going to happen for me. Couldn't see it. And then she said, don't compare yourself
Mm.
to the next person beside you. And it sunk in for the first time that I was the one doing it to myself.
Right.
And that really started that moment of just like, wow, I'm wielding the implement of judgment against myself. Basically, we're using our consciousness
Yeah.
to berate ourselves all the time when we're in a place of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my 20s, I put a lot of discipline. In my late 20s, I spent a lot of time personally before I ever had a coach or a healer or anybody to guide my process. I was self-guiding, and I was scrutinizing about the language that I would use with myself. But man, there are always blind spots. And so it's a path of healing that every person, I think, generally, most people are not exempt from that process. And having someone to help you can definitely speed it up. There's something else that's really interesting as we're talking about this, though, and it's the idea of what I just mentioned a bit ago, of how passionate I am about redirecting people back to our own inner knowing.
Right.
It's kind of like a paradox or something to think about, like, when's the right time to bring somebody else in to help us trust ourselves? This is really a dance. And I recognize that that's even hard if someone's like, oh, I want to trust myself. Sure. When's the right time to reach out?
Right.
Even that is a moment, an opportunity to trust yourself. How fast can you go? What would it look like for this to be easier? What would it look like to accept help? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's no right answer, but I recognize that's a really funny aspect of like help to trust yourself, but it's really powerful and very beautiful as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I'm writing a book right now, and one of the parts actually that I'm working on right now, I'm teaching about how to open your heart to receive, and part of that is to like open your heart to receive love, which can be in the form of asking for help and being able to then be willing to receive that help. Because I know for me that I grew up in a household. I had an alcoholic dad, and my mom was, dealing with that in her own way, had her own challenges. And so my life was out of control. And so I then tended to swing the other way and want everything in my life to be in control, which means I had to do things all by myself and not ask for help. So it's been a process now of being able to let go and being able to ask for help, which I think is so important. So you're right. I can see it is a bit of a dance in trying to figure out, when to do things on my own, to be able to trust your instincts. But sometimes you still need help being able to have someone. Sometimes maybe it's even giving you permission in a little ways, because I think sometimes we are be so hard on ourselves that we're not giving ourselves even permission to do that.
It's so true. And I really feel like you just touched on something that feels very important to me. So we can all kind of relate to. If you ever had like a situation where your muscles are so seized up, because maybe let's think about like the back, maybe you're used to holding tension in the shoulders. And so your shoulders are kind of up by your ears, and the bringing of conscious awareness to like, no, let go.
Yeah.
Soften, let go. Even somebody who might be scared, who wants help, you can see a lot of, I feel like imagery is really helpful. And you can see a picture of someone just knowing they need help out on a bridge or something, but they can't let go.
Yeah, right.
Having somebody to help us let go sometimes is the only way. And it's that process of doing it ourselves, having assistance to help it be easier, stepping into greater power, having some assistance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
One thing I was in doing some research on you, I noticed that you have a driving principle in your life, which I think actually I want to talk about it here, because I think it does play in a lot with what we've been talking about. You said that I guess this driving principle in your life and your business is radical acceptance. What does that mean to you, and how does that sort of fit into what we've been talking about here?
Oh man, it's so interesting how your work and your thought process evolves over time. I was leaning into that radical acceptance, and I realized the value of that. And I only put words to it maybe 8 years later. But the first interaction that I had with a hypnotherapist, I was 21 years old. And that was like really the only support I had around any type of anxiety. I was in a depressive period at the very end of my years at the Air Force Academy. So I was a senior at the Air Force Academy, and I all of a sudden, after years of holding myself to the wire and like really showing up to every single rule and doing everything the right way and accomplishing and achieving, and I have like the best marks and top of my class, like top 6%. And I mean, it's a big deal. I started in a breakdown mode senior year where I was depressed. I couldn't even show up to classes, and I was scaring myself.
Yikes.
So I said, whoa, who is this person? I couldn't count on myself to just force it and make it happen anymore, because some of my coping mechanisms over the long term were starting to break down. And people think that that's scary. And I mean, it feels scary when it's happening to you for the first time, but it's really the beginning of the end of the problem. Because when your coping starts to break down, you're kind of saying at an unconscious level, enough of this.
Right, exactly.
I'm not carrying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sound familiar?
Oh yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
So,
yeah.
so there I was, a total train wreck, afraid I wasn't going to graduate with my class, which there really isn't an option for that at the Air Force Academy, at that time at least. I was like, you got to get it together, Mandy. Well, I was home for Christmas break, and it just so happened that my mother suggested that I go see a hypnotherapist for this. Maybe somebody could help me. As coincidentally, another family member was going around the same time for a different issue. This was really outside the box even for our family. Yeah. And I was just like, sure, whatever. Like, bring it on. I'm crying like waterworks all the time, and I have no explanation for it. So why wouldn't I go and see this person? And he walked me through this I mean, we were 60 minutes on the clock, and I was out the door. And it was just kind of like, I like to call it like throwing hypnosis at it. And it just like, let's see what happens at the end of an hour. And what I got to see is he stepped me through a couple of different imagery techniques of like bringing the part of myself, when he kind of forced me to say, what was it that I was not happy? What was the feeling that was causing me to feel so badly? And then I saw that embodied as a part of myself. And then I brought her along to a lot of different people in my life. And he said, what do they think about her? What do they think about this version of you? What do they think about this version of you? And I was like, for me in that exercise, I was like, they all love her. She's totally awesome. Everybody loves her. I was kind of like, it took all of the fear out of it. It was a very experiential thing. And I know that may not really translate through when somebody just hears that technique. It's something that's experienced. And when you can step into imagery, this was really when I experienced the power of imagery to transform a situation in an instant. Because once you see something from a new perspective, you can't unsee it.
Oh yeah.
And I learned, he said to me in no uncertain terms at the end of the session, so they've all met her. This is a part of you. You can't be at odds with a part of yourself. You can't judge and shame a part of your own self, or else it's going to cause major problems. And that's exactly what was happening. I wasn't at peace and in acceptance with myself.
Right.
So I think that to me, radical acceptance, it kind of started then, but I realized we have to find the good in each part of ourselves, and the parts that we're loathing or scared of or whatever, finding the experiential way to embody that part and nurture it and love it without judgment. It's important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because otherwise you are going to end up the way you were doing, where you're just, it's a recipe for depression and just not engaging with life. And so it's absolutely so important. And I loved how you were, now I don't remember what you were saying, but it was something about, because it brought to mind something that I had an experience. Oh, I know, you were talking about how you can never unsee something, or it's different now because of how you're seeing it new. Because I had an experience when I was a kid where I had something happen to me and I made up this story about it. And it wasn't until maybe a few years ago where I said, what if I actually misinterpreted that and it didn't happen. I was just making something else up about it. And maybe this person actually liked what I was doing as opposed to being, making fun of it. And it totally flipped it for me. And so now it's like, okay, well, I don't have to feel so bad about that anymore because it may be that I just totally misinterpreted it because I was only like 7 years old at the time. And we don't understand things very well at 7, do we?
It's true. And this is very core to the gift that I give through work with people one-on-one is it really takes someone else. This is a nuance about it. Like, when do you need help versus we have this theme of when do you need reach out versus a very strong point of passion of mine to distinguish this for people, because I believe in the power of us that you already are that which you desire. You already are it. And so dependence in a healing sense is really unhealthy. And I place a lot of focus and emphasis, and I spend a lot of energy with people, emphasizing the areas where the capability, the skill set is already intrinsic. They own the ability, but sometimes we have to allow someone else to help us see like a mirror. We can't be the mirror. Yeah. Another friend of mine says you can't read the label from inside the bottle. You can't do it. You need someone else sometimes to show you the other perspective, especially when there's trauma. Like what you were saying, you were able to walk yourself through a logical process at some point and kind of unload the situation for yourself. But sometimes when situations or experiences were very dangerous, or we have identified with them very closely, it is next to impossible to release that. The grip on that's what happened is basically what's been keeping us safe all these years, or perceived. And so that's when it can be, we have to have somebody else. And I have to have somebody else too. Even though I do this work, I need someone else in the picture for me too.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, the only reason I came to that is because I had just come out of a weekend where I was working on a bunch of other stuff with, trained professionals. So it was just like unpacking another layer of it, because I think I was at the airport journaling afterwards. And it was like, it just suddenly popped into my head, this story. And it was like, because I think that's what we were talking about. Part of the weekend was, looking at things, we create these stories, we make up stories about things, and they're not always true. They could be stories to protect us in the moment. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to serve us, or they're stories that we picked up from our parents and they're not even our stories, which happens, I think, a lot.
So much. Very, very, very true. Awesome observation.
I wanted to ask you a little bit, because I know, one of the things that you do is, you mentioned you do hypnotherapy. And I think a lot of people typically think of going to a hypnotherapist to, do things like helping with, stopping smoking or improving their weight. But that's not necessarily, I don't get that feeling from you. You're doing much more deeper work with people. Is that correct? Yeah.
Well, I kind of giggle as we talk about this, because yes, I am a pretty interested person in my work, and other people are interested in their lives too. And I think that when I work best with people, when I really click and it's a great fit to let's jam on this together and solve this and move the dirt for good for you. It's when we can both be speaking a similar language, that the smoking is symptomatic of something going on underneath. And the way that I work with people is to address the foundational deficit, which has been perceived, in order for them to release this automatic reaction to craving for this compulsiveness. It's meeting an underlying need. So it's not about the smoking. It's about something else. And so really, I mean, sometimes people find me because they're looking for, they stumble across, and it's about smoking
Right.
was what was top of mind.
Yeah.
But as soon as we could be talking about, well, what's really, what is not smoking anymore give you? Or what is the feeling of smoking? What is
Mm.
it doing for you anyway? It's a lot more fun because those are the real human things versus just seeing ourselves as a smoker that we want to get rid of this negative thing.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much more to life than just not smoking anymore.
Mm.
But yeah, we can do that and everything else under the sun. It's really, really exciting.
Well, it makes sense in a way because it's sort of like, when you go to a doctor and they give you prescribe medicine for the symptom, but are they really treating the underlying cause of what's going on? And I know I just in mind doing a lot of reading and things that it seems like even just about every health issue that's out there seems to me to be more traced to what's going on in your mind. And I know that's have you found that it is more of this mind body connection that can manifest, I guess, whatever maybe things are going on in your mind can sometimes manifest as physical symptoms?
Yeah, I think it's kind of fortunate that you brought that up. And I love the way that you worded that because I was recently really reflecting on I'm about 5 years into this work by now.
Mm.
And um, my own understanding of the support that I provide has definitely evolved and matured and grown. And that's going to continue happening,
Of course.
for the rest of my life. It's
Yeah.
really what makes it a constant process of evolution. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, around this topic of, I feel like one of my absolute greatest gifts is the deep interest that I have in helping people to create true healing in resolving the root of the root of the root.
Mm.
And I hope that I am a source of inspiration for people to examine what's the reason behind the reason for every problem. Because what would it be like if we did that? If we really thought about, but what's the reason that this is a problem? What's the reason for that part of the problem?
Mm.
I have a background in engineering and worked on a flight line at Langley Air Force Base in a lot of different manufacturing environments and interface between engineers and like sales. So like been this technical translator
Oh, wow.
for a lot of my life. And the 5 whys are really core to like my professional upbringing. The development of my mind was always, people were always bringing our nose back to but what's the real reason for this? And I have a natural propensity and interest in that anyway. And how much more true for emotional issues or the things that are automatic.
Yeah.
What's automating them? It's
Right.
your subconscious. So that's why I love it that I get to work with people and I do this work in the subconscious.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's I don't think it seems to me that you probably come across too many people who are engineers and then become folks who are interested in the type of work that you're doing, hypnotherapy and all of that. So that's really cool because I think I can see how it really does benefit your clients being able to do that because you've got the best of both worlds. So that's awesome to be able to do that.
Thank you so much.
One thing I did want to ask you, because I'm naturally curious, and especially when I run across guests who have interesting names of their companies. So I was just wondering, where did Palladium Mind come from? Because I know I've heard the word Palladium before, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know, is there a story behind that?
Yeah, there is. So the simplest story is I'll tell you the real story because there's layers of this story.
Yeah.
But I'm a real geek for great branding. I feel like unconsciously you can communicate so much with just sounds or colors or images. There's so much that gets conveyed. And so I really wanted to convey the certain traits and the qualities of my practice and even of essentially who I see myself as through my brand. So I thought about it and I love when I was thinking about names for anything, I actually really think about how does something sound and how does it feel to say it.
Mm.
And I was passing this hotel. It was the Palladium Kimpton or something in Seattle, the Palladium. And I was like, what an amazing word that is, Palladium. And I looked it up, and there's palladium and there's palladium. And palladium is actually like a shield or a coat of arms that protects.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, well, that's cool, but that's not
Yeah.
palladium. Palladium is actually one of the elements on the periodic table.
Ah, okay.
It's one of the platinum metal groups.
Hmm.
So you may see where this is going, but palladium as a metal is actually very valuable, and it's highly conductive. So it's also a catalyst for change, and it's conducive, it's malleable, it's lustrous, it's beautiful. And I think that those are definitely qualities. If you can have a mind that's truly seeing itself as lustrous, valuable, malleable, soft, lightweight. These are all the qualities of that metal. And I'm just like, sounds good. It means a good thing. I love it. Let's do this.
I like it.
How's that feel to you? Do you like it?
I do indeed. Absolutely. Yeah, because that's and we do want our minds to be able to grow and to be malleable and be open to new concepts, and I think that's awesome, and it is definitely valuable because it's there's so much that we've don't even have tapped into how powerful our minds are. So I love it. Very good choice. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm trying to think. Oh, one other thing I know that I wanted to touch on, as I mentioned earlier, we're recording this at the end of September, and it's been 2020 has certainly been 2020 vision, and we've certainly seen some interesting things happen in our world this year. How has this either impacted you personally, professionally, the pandemic and all of this? Let's just start there. How has it, if it even has impacted? I don't know.
Well, it's definitely impacted me at the level of empathy and concern for the struggles that this is creating for a lot of segments of the world, those who have lost.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that deeply. I have many people that I'm working with personally that have either lost family members or very close friends. That's been a direct impact just because I care about the people around me, and I care about people that I haven't met yet.
Oh, yeah.
I have a deep concern I know the fear that it can be when you don't feel secure because the job is in flux, and there's a very real impact to people currently in our country and in different places in the world. There's greater impacts to the virus. I mean, I try to let all that information through. I feel very fortunate because of having devoted so much attention and been privileged to have done a lot of healing work up until now, that fear around uncertainty is not something that I confront. So I can be a source of stability and strength for others because I've already wrangled with those demons within myself. And I have a different level of sight and confidence, which allows me to be a resource for others in a time like this. It's like I said, since my 20s and definitely in the last 10 years, I've just been spending so much attention helping myself transcend fears so I can be a source, be just a vessel of love for others.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank
you.
Yeah. Do you work with clients strictly like one-on-one, or do you, ever do any like group coaching or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, I have a couple of different ways that I work with people. If I could, I would just constantly be working with people one-on-one because I think it's a really, really powerful way. But what I know is that some people aren't even ready. I mean, if it's an opportunity, like if you could reach me, you have to pick up a phone and make a phone call and talk to a stranger on the phone. So people aren't ready to do that.
That's true. Yeah.
So I learned that you have to provide opportunities for people to get to know you at maybe a more distance way, or take a small step before that readiness clicks in to maybe do something that's deeper one-on-one.
Mm.
So all of those are available. There's a lot of different options, and I've created some digital resources. Finally, 5 years in, I was just like kicking and screaming. I was just like, no, I really want to serve people. I want to help people do trauma work, trauma healing. You got to like do it, and it's be present to the emotion, all this stuff. And I finally was like, oh, there's a huge way to transfer value if you can provide someone this type of tool. And so I found the way for me to do that through my practice, and those are available on the site too.
Okay. And
Kind of pick your poison.
there you go. Well, which brings me to, what is your website? How can someone reach out to you? What is the best way?
Beautiful. So there is actually a little giveaway that we created especially for your listeners, Gloria, and the website is palladiummind.com. So Palladium is just like you'd find it, the element on the periodic table, palladiummind.com/live-love-engage. So people can find it. That's easily why it's just a sub page of the main site, and there'll be a giveaway there so people can drop into a meditative quality of mind without having to become a meditation expert in a much easier way using imagery. And that's one of the giveaways that's there.
Oh, excellent. And I will make sure that I have that in the show notes. So if you're driving or something and listening to this, don't worry, you'll be able to access it later. I love that. And actually that, before we go, let me just ask you real quick about, is meditation something that maybe you do personally, or is that something that you recommend to your clients? Because I know it's something that I do and love. I've been doing it for years.
I kind of like to joke that I spend like 50% of my day in trance anyway. So I actually do a lot of processing in lucid dreaming, and I definitely have a meditation practice. But I want to encourage people, something that's not talked about very often is when you develop the ability to steer your own attention. I think sometimes we think that meditation is something we're just never going to get right. And one of the best benefits that I find of meditation is as a way of training ourselves to be in meditation or out of meditation. You can steer your attention in a moment. And when you have that control, you can drop judgment and drop into the feeling body of information instantaneously. And to the point of how we opened this call, I think that's very powerful for someone who's trying to access, like, hey, get in touch with what's the source of this issue that I'm experiencing right now. We have to be in the body in order to receive information that's not currently conscious.
Right.
So think of meditation more as like a practice that you're doing to have that ability to drop in or out quickly, to steer your own intelligence and use your mind in a way that works best for you in that moment. Because sometimes we need to be problem solving, and sometimes we need to let problem solving rest.
Absolutely. And that's oftentimes when then the problems will get solved, because I have learned is to, when you're focused so much on it, it's like you're putting almost too much pressure on it. But if you can just let go and even go for a walk, think about something else, then that sort of frees up the mind to sort of deliver that information to you later. Like, that's why a lot of people say they get their best ideas in the shower, because you're not thinking about it necessarily.
Yeah, you just hit on a big one. Awesome. Love that you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good thing for people to know, is to just really relax and not struggle. And also to remember that sometimes you do need to reach out for help, and that's okay to do that. And so just, it is about starting to listen, and if you're, because if you are struggling, you don't have to struggle alone.
And that's not a disempowered situation either. That's like there's so many people that struggle alone. It is a very bold act to like reach out and go like, hey, I think I need an expert here right now. I think I need a little help. And, I talk about this a lot of other places too, and we don't really have time to get into it here, but I've been that person too. And I am more and more continually that person. I have people around me helping me all the time. So it's not like, okay, then you get fixed and then you can just go back to doing it alone. I think that the really wise arrangement is to be constantly supporting yourself in whatever way feels best at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because, no matter where you are in either in your life or your business, there are, frankly, the people who succeed in life, they're doing it because they've got other people helping them out. They're not doing it alone. It takes way too much time, effort, and stress to struggle by yourself. I've learned that. I'm still looking for more help in my business right now too, because it's like, it's like I can't keep doing things by myself. It doesn't. It's too. I'm all about easy and relaxed. This is my mantra going into
Love
2021. I
that.
want stuff to be easy and relaxed, and that means getting help.
I love that.
Mm.
I am right there with you.
Well, I would say, I think unless you have any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share, anything else, anything we haven't covered?
I love where we ended up. I thought this was such a lovely conversation, and it's definitely given me a couple things to think about too.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and being with us. And I really enjoyed our chat. It's been lovely getting to know you. And I am sure that our listeners and those watching on YouTube got a lot of value out of it as well. And so make sure that you, if you're interested in Mandy, go to her website, palladiummind.com. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.